Welcome back, everyone. As the EU fans, hopefully, I mean, they're probably just still crying, myself included, but I had to wipe my tears off because we have another series. That's how that one went, 2-0 in the end. That does mean that G2 gets another chance to live another day, but their fate will be decided by the draw tomorrow. Who doesn't get another chance if they fail here is BLG and PSG, because we are moving into an elimination best of 3 in the 1 and 2 side of the pools. And I think we got to start, Emily, with the fact that BLG is even in this 1 and 2 position is one of the biggest surprises of Worlds so far.
It's really shocking, actually, because I know coming into this, I was like, okay, of all the teams coming in from the LPL, BLG is actually the one that I was the least worried about for 2 reasons. One, they were by far and away the strongest team. And then 2, the meta looked like it was going to be a great shift for them, right? Like, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of stuff that Knight can play, Wei can interact with his lanes a little bit more, maybe with some of these jungle picks, and they've looked not great in this meta. I have not really enjoyed their meta read, Draco.
I haven't enjoyed it either. And we take a look at some of the big picks that they've been prioritizing. It's not that it's uncommon for the picks that they're choosing to be high prio. Things like the Jhin, the Poppy, the Ahri, but they're using them in ways that are highly questionable. I think Poppy's an incredible counter pick, but if you're blinding it, it's going to feel bad. The Jhin as well, not powerful. But as much as I would love for that to be the talking point, the biggest thing, the biggest variable is this jungle substitution, which I think screams to the world that BLG know they have a problem, and this to me feels like a last-ditch effort to turn things around.
Yeah, and my hot take is actually that they play very similarly with both junglers. It's just that Xun is a little bit more risky and will potentially go for more carry picks. So I don't know if they're going to change their meta read or if they're just looking for some way to do better and sub Xun in. We'll see if it works.
They gotta do something, Emily. They're up versus PSG with their tournament lives on the line as well. And of course, this is a rematch. It went all the way to Game 5 at MSI, and PSG could not close it out. The question is, will they be able to do it here?
That is the major question on our mind, Shots, because we've already had one MSI rematch go the way that it went at MSI. Can BLG bounce back from a very disappointing start to Worlds 2024? And will we see PSG continue to make their way up the ranks and surprise a lot of teams with how well they can play?
And I think it's actually fitting that they sub Xun back in now, because Xun was playing at the MSI series, of course, and was a big part in it. I mean, one of the games that PSG won was one of their lane swaps where they actually put Xun and Bin very far behind. That was the Bin Vayne game where they were able to dive in between towers. But the other one was where Maple was an Aurelian Soul, and they had to actually scale back into the game. PSG, in that series, you know, people will remember they actually pushed BLG quite far in many of the games, and it was very close. So while on paper this should be very lopsided, what we just saw fairly recently at MSI was competitive.
But the thing was, it was PSG punishing a lot of the over-aggression from BLG, right? Especially when you look at the bot lane, like Elk trying to play heavily into that 2v2. Consistently, you're having JunJia show up and punish them in that respect. Then when it got in towards the later portions, the portions of this turn that we've seen so far as well, like against T1 punishing that over-aggression from BiliBili. So it still feels like a lot of the weaknesses from BLG are on show, and PSG have a framework in which they can operate to try and punish that once more.
I think the question for BLG is what we've seen from them at Worlds so far where they will peak at Worlds? Because if they play anywhere like the level they did domestically, this should be a quick 2-0. They should be able to dominate a team like PSG, even if PSG play well.
I do agree with Emily, though. I feel like a lot of the issues with BiliBili have been lack of good meta read, where they've kind of gone for these low damage drafts, or they've kind of been trying to facilitate Knight, who is exceptionally strong in these control mages, but haven't had a carry either in the Jhin that Elk has been prioritizing or in their jungle from Wei. So I think bringing Xun back in feels like they're going to try and shift back over towards a lot of the more carry-oriented picks that Xun has been renowned for, and that Wei has some, but not to the same extent as Xun.
And they've been pretty open that both Xun and Wei have been sharing scrims, you know, at different times. So both of them playing with the team. If they slam a Kindred pick, like that will actually be insane. You know, Kindred or Nidalee comes out here for Xun, it would be super hype, but not really the way that this meta has gone. Whereas at MSI, both of those were very prominent picks.
For PSG on the other side, you're looking at Betty, you're looking at Maple, both of whom are having very good tournaments so far. Also, Woody on Engaged Champions is a force to be reckoned with. So that's where my eyes are really focused. I think Azure is a serviceable top laner and can have moments to shine. And obviously, the battle between the two junglers is going to be paramount in this series.
All right, Yone or Aurora here. You actually have to give one of the two over. Both of those have been highly prized power pick solo laners here. I and much of the community would favor the Yone ban side of it, but Aurora, Nocturne, okay, so they actually give both, and they want whichever one you don't pick, we are going to snatch 2 prio picks instead.
And this is actually what we got a trade like this. I can't remember what game it was earlier in this tournament as well, where we got the Yone first pick and the Aurora counter, and the Aurora actually ended up coming out on top. I want to say it was Cream being able to play in that mid lane because you do have a lot of control, you're able to push back, and I think Aurora as well, while she has a lot of great utility in her kit, her scaling on her ratios is absolutely insane as well. So I'm not surprised to see BiliBili going towards this. One, because it can match up into the Yone fairly well, but two, you also get that flexibility where you can put it top if PSG don't take the Yone here.
Feels like PSG have to take the Yone,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah.
Give it either to Azure or to Maple. See how well you can do. Maybe we've played it once already, of course, here at Worlds so far. Alongside that, are you looking towards jungle? Skarner's already been removed, Vi's already been removed. Do you want something that has non-committal engage, which is what we always talk about? Sejuani fits that wheelhouse very well.
Yeah, you would have had to ask that question way earlier because Sejuani is always instant lock with a Yone. The very, very straightforward melee synergies there to lock up the Suns. Really puts that pressure on a lot of the matchups where the Yone does rely so much on these E trades. Pop the E, go in, put a bunch of pressure on your opponent, but if you have to throw the Sejuani, it turns it into a whole new level. The next kind of mind game, though, that has emerged that I actually liked what FlyQuest did when they gave it over was that they know that if you're going to go into this style, you are going to be committing to some melee short-range compositions, very often dive compositions, and then you can try and craft counter dive or large AoE answers to that. It is very dangerous, of course, but I actually do think the Aurora was a good place to start, and they're going to follow it up here.
Yeah, with the Wukong, again, kind of that more carry-oriented pick that we were talking about potentially coming through for Shun. And I think it facilitates well in the, hey, I'm going to use the Aurora ult to group everyone up, and then Wukong comes in and just swings that staff around and knocks everyone up. So a nice little combo for BLG. And I think this is definitely a shift away from what they came into the last couple of games with. This feels a very different style, and at least one that BLG have already kind of identified that meta shift they need to make.
Kennen the pick into it, though. You can see there's this kind of battle of zone control in team fights of these big AoEs, the Cyclone versus the Slicing Maelstrom. Obviously, it's going to be Knight on the Aurora, has a lot of ability to control where a team fight is fought. Like, Kennen can't get through the Between Worlds. You can't break that shield unless you go through with a flash. So we'll see how effectively Azure is able to play. This is one of his most played across the course of his career. Now we move down towards the AD carry and support roles. Ashe banned away by PSG, removing some of the pick potential and also the knowledge of where people are on the map by taking away that choice.
Yeah, a lot of times if the opening of the draft is very AoE and very cluster oriented, then the AD carries start looking at, all right, we either got to be able to follow along with all of this dive and action that's going, or we have to be able to escape it. And so you see stuff like this, like the utility of the Ashe arrow getting banned or the Kai'Sa follow-up, or you can also start to think about things like Ezreal that have more mobility that can try and play around that.
Kalista is also the one that stands out to me that he could be trying to eye up for, just take that on this next rotation, and even then it opens up for Renata too, so be interesting to see what Betty decides to end up going towards, because you've already got that AP unlock from the Kennen, so you're able to just go into these heavy AD focused picks. Do BLG want to try and ban it away to try and make that a little bit more uncomfortable? Because Elk I will be very happy to play it. Like the Rakan is a respect ban to on, but the Kalista and Renata were two of those big picks that they went like to go for in the past.
BLG actually decided to ban away the Kalista themselves, now pick some more AoE for the team fight in the form of the Rell. Elk could look towards something like the Lucian Nami that has served them well in the past, but is a little bit susceptible to being jumped on by the enemy team. Does give you a lot of lane pressure, though. I think Elk are actually having a pretty good year on Lucian Nami as well, if I remember correctly. Rell still not quite locked in, but you have to feel this is where PSG are going.
I do think, though, this is an angle where you could just go back towards the Jhin. Like, I wasn't a big fan of it in their last few comps because it just felt like you didn't have any supplementary damage, but you've got an boatloads with what's been drafted already for BLG, and it then means that you can play fairly far back from the likes of a Yone or a Kennen, but potentially go for the MF. Similar kind of idea, long range ultimate. You don't actually have to be up close and personal in these fights as they start off.
Would be full AoE if they did go for it, and the Leona definitely pairs well.
I'm interested that we didn't see a Renata from either side as well. You do have it like big AoEs, but when you have this much engage, it feels like Renata can do quite a lot of work at just disengaging the enemy team, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think the only caveat is I think teams kind of look at it saying, hey, we'd like it paired with the Callista because she isn't very vulnerable.
True.
But having that invulnerability from the Fate's Call can make it tougher to always come out safe. But on the opposite side, they're actually just going to go back towards the MF. So you already called it a big AoE. And I don't know if Betty wants to answer with his own AoE.
The biggest of clusters we're going to have. These team fights will be a big bang, for sure.
Can we just get another play-by-play on the desk instead of one of you guys for the team fights?
To say, look at the explosions. Oh, there's the Ezreal. Okay, so that was the other, part of the AD carries I was mentioning earlier about you can try and go for the survival tactic in these cases. And Betty is a very good Ezreal, has invested so much time into this champion. I will say too, because we actually were casting this series at MSI, and the same setup was there where Betty gave an interview with PentaQ where he was talking about Elk, and specifically Elk on the Lucian, is the AD carry that everyone wants to be, aspires to be, has so much respect for Elk and On as a bottom lane. And he really showed up and proved himself against kind of his, heroes or players that he looks up to in that series. So I'm really looking forward to the part 2 to this and kind of the follow-up.
And I mean, Betty will also be very familiar with them, right? Played on RNG, Rogue Warriors, back when Elk was still Jomung. So there's a lot of history both in the LPL, now at the international stage as well. And I think having this Ezreal at least gives him a chance to try and arcane shift out of this bullet cyclone of weirding that's going to be coming his way on BLG side. So he can have a major performance coming into this game if he's able to keep himself safe.
Kind of a bullet hell experience for both the AD carries in this game. For BLG, currently sitting at 1 and 2, performing well below expectations so far at Worlds 2024. PSG looking to add another name to the list of teams they have defeated over the years. BLG, well, PSG were very close to doing it against BLG at MSI. Can they go one step better here? Best of 3 for a spot in Paris, for a spot in the quarterfinals as we go on to the Rift for the 3rd time today.
So much goes along with this series as well, with the interview and Maple kind of referencing that this might be his retirement year. Such a legendary player on the international stage, and he's been given the pick of the tournament. That pick of the tournament, the Yone, of course, was not free, did come at the cost of giving over Knight's Aurora, but definitely will be looking at Maple, especially with the support of a Sejuani jungle. Yep. At his back to make some big plays.
And we'll be looking at the mid lane, but you guys need to remember to look and log into your Riot account at lolesports.com and watch Worlds live to earn exclusive Worlds emotes, icons, and capsules. Get yourself all those little trinkets, all those little toys. I know I'm a bit of a completionist myself. If I see something shiny on the ground, got to pick it up.
I've never met more of a grinder than you. I'm not going to lie. The second you have
Look,
something
man,
in your sights.
I have my Diablo 4 character already, like Paragon 200. It's fine. It's okay, please, Rob, please validate me.
No, look, this is actually an intervention.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I didn't realize. My mistake. BLG setting up down towards the bottom side. Did look for a moment like they might lane swap, but instead they were just trying to get bush control in the top side. Often we do see a ward placed when you do this. I think Knight may have placed his ward in that bush. Actually, he's gone over towards the Razor Beak. So what you often want to do is, if you're playing melee into ranged, is you want to try and get a ward into one of the bushes to make it harder for the range to drop minion aggro in that top lane. And it looks like Azhi should be able to continually harass there as Bin and him trade towards the top side.
I think he should be relatively okay as Bin still to get pushed, just thanks to that counter-strike. Yeah. It works out very well. We saw it from BB on the opposite side in the last game, where even with the Nari, he couldn't really do too much. So Bin going to be fine. And okay, Woody not quite been able to get the crash down there, but with the push on top and also slowly starting to come through, I'd imagine, in mid lane as well. I think you're going to be fine as Shun to move up towards this top side and contest for Scuttle, which is really where you want to be, is this Wukong, because hitting level 6, getting out onto the map as quick as possible with that ultimate is so crucial to this success.
Yeah, one of the things that we saw actually a decent amount more, I feel like, from BLG when they actually put Wei in instead of Shun was more attention towards Bin and topside, and he is on his legendary Jax. But of course, with both of those junglers sharing scrims with the team and playing this whole time, very could be evened up by Shun. Wukong, notoriously looking for the level 6 though, so you would generally, just on paper, give the early ganks a bit more potency on the side of the Sejuani until the level 6 comes in, and the Wukong a bit more scaling and damage threat, of course.
And that was the thing on the opposite side when we saw Shun coming in. He kind of put a lot of focus on towards that bottom side for a lot of their games, especially when you look at like their series against LNG and that. So I think for BLG, it's going to be a case of trying to see if they can have that access to the bottom side. I don't think they can really get Woody, as Woody's, or sorry, Betty, I should say, because Betty has that arcane shift, but Woody will be way more vulnerable to that sort of gank, especially with the lockup that On can provide. So I think BLG more going to be looking towards, say, the level 6 with those potential ganks, but also Void Grubs as they start to come through for that second round.
See Jun kind of pathing down towards that bottom side to get the Scuttle Crab. JunJia has taken control over the top side. Bin had to TP back as he was harassed by Azhi. Not too much surprising in this early game. The MF managing to get push into a Ezreal lane. It's kind of to be expected. She has a lot of damage in the early game, and obviously more as she gets towards that Bloodthirster too.
Yeah, definitely a fearsome lane there with the Leona. Of course, worth noting that the Leona there on is taking the exhaust for the Kennen later on into the game, but also serves its purpose in those all-ins if our junglers do find themselves, ganking the bottom lane and trying to play off that wave management. Definitely does kind of put a stop to some of those very, very heavy all-ins.
Just keep my eyes on what Shun is up to, because, oh, hang on, Bin.
Bin gets the counter-strike. Can look for the Empower in a couple of seconds as well. Azhi deciding he has to flash away. Doesn't want to be hit with the lamppost from Bin.
That's pretty crucial though, because you like having those solo laners hit 6 just in time for like Void Grub fights or anything like that. So not having that, not having that flash available for that combo is going to be a bit sad.
Flash in onto On here. Doesn't have the exhaust and a flash of his own. Zenith plays onto JunJia to try and get himself away. Exhaust on the Sejuani, not the target you want. Jun trying to join the fray. Elk having to cleanse flash away as Jun is now caught with a Shadowing Strike, and PSG find first blood in the bot lane and will force Shun away.
Nice job by Woody to get the crash down on towards On, trying to base in PSG, hoping that Shun would be in position, but JunJia's already there, and the value at this early stage for the Sejuani getting multiple CC chains off is just perfect for PSG.
Yeah, the timing was so nice too, with JunJia heading down, finish up the Gromp, and the flash from Woody. He has had so many set up plays for some of the biggest moments for PSG. The first blood acquired for PSG, and in the area that they wanted, yeah, the Sejuani is the one to actually get the final hit, because On did a pretty good job of trying to use JunJia as an exit, but still very happy to actually cash in, and very nice gold lead for PSG in the opener.
And a lot of that control that PSG got in their series against BLG at MSI was through that bottom lane. So starting to see a repeat performance is Knight in trouble.
Fate Seal going in. Knight's going to be able to jump away, can use the Between Worlds to dash out, but that's an ultimate for ultimate exchange in the mid lane.
You'll take that though as PSG, because Knight way less threatening with that ultimate down at these early stages. Also the fact that you get mid push means you get to move over straight away towards these Void Grubs. And look at Shun, he's not even close to that level 6, and Bin in the same boat. So he's a little bit off, has to finish out this wave, which means BLG not really in a position to contest.
Yeah, for sure. PSG just going to be able to get these Void Grubs no problem. And if you look at the domino effect of some of those plays, guess what a mid-prio for Yone could turn into? It's more ganks on bottom side. JunJia could go down back bottom side, as well as possible Maple Room. So there are a lot of good things building up towards consecutive plays, since not only On used summoner spells in the bottom side, but it was also Elk in their attempts to evade.
Also just putting Knight on edge a little bit, right? Making him burn his ultimate is so important because Knight has so consistently been a stalwart of the LPL. I think if people only follow International League of Legends, they won't really see Knight as this dominant character. But he's a 5-time LPL champion, tied first in LPL championships. He's been at Worlds 4 times, and although the furthest he's ever made is semi-finals, he's widely regarded as one of, if not the best mid laner in the world, depending on the time of year.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the best mid laner in the LPL and is the kingmaker in the LPL. He's been in the last 6 LPL finals. He has won 4 in the last finals, and is now starting to tie people for most LPL titles with the likes of Xiaohu and these guys. Like, adding a Worlds title to this guy just makes him the most decorated LPL player of all time.
And it feels like such a weird thing to talk about when they're 1,000 goal behind PSG in the 1-2 matches, right? Because this is not where BLG expected to be. It's kind of where PSG expected to be, as Betty should be able to go away here. The Zenith Blade going in. Betty trying to trade back onto Elk. On went in with the Zenith Blade himself. Doesn't have the exhaust up. Now he's taking the Magna Storm coming out as well. And what is On doing? Looking for the engage, thinking Shun would back him up, but he was left to his own devices. And in the end, he's left to his demise.
Well, the thing is, one of the players that has been involved in some of these Worlds-winning rosters was JunJia, and he's keeping it going.
Goes in with the Glacial Prism. The Cleanse was available for Elk, and he holds it. The bullet time opens up. Shun going in with the Cyclone, looking to make a Tempest. He'll take one. JunJia falls. Woody trying to get the CC onto Shun to keep Betty alive. Shun holds it and dies in the end. Tried to flash away, but Betty puts him in the dirt.
And PSG, the reason they keep forcing on this bottom side is because all the setup work that they had done, all of these extra advantages going into it. So even though Shun is there to cover on the first attempt, and it actually takes the second attempt for them to finally get a counter kill, it is still so much more worth for PSG because they blew all the bot lane summoners first time around, and then as you can see, JunJia can just kind of walk right by Shun, and they punish On again. He was still only level 4 to Woody's 6. Like, massive, massive difference. There's no way you can ever fight the even numbers, and it's just by the skin of their teeth. Like, what HP was that, like 30 maybe left on Elk? That it didn't even go catastrophically wrong for BLG. So while in the end you're kind of like celebrating Shun got 1 counter kill at least, it is still so overwhelmingly into the game plan of PSG for them to continue to play around here. And we'll see if there are extra knock-on effects if Maple becomes unleashed as well.
Well, the thing is, the knock-on effect is Azhi's had a free lane to himself, and he's been doing a great job against Bane. You can see a 600 gold lead opening up thanks to CS and the turret plates he's been able to get. And now, when you start to look at things like dragons that are still up and available, the Void Grubs in a minute's time, Azhi is in prime position to be an outright carry for PSG Talon. BLG need to find some way back into this game, or PSG Talon can just run away with this.
Just look at the bottom of the screen. It's like a good library. Red, 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 red. You know, it's so strong for PSG right now. Gold leads in every single lane. BLG trying to get mid control so they can fight over this Scuttle Crab and the Grubs that are coming up in 40 seconds time. But PSG are using the time to take a Drake for themselves. They know they can then go across and even try to catch Knight out, who'll get the Blast Cone, but JunJia's going to follow him across. Knight still has the flash, has the ult, has the dash with the weirding. Caught out with the Glacial Prism. True Shot Barrage coming out as well, and Knight now has to invest that Summoner to escape the clutches of JunJia.
So much damage could have come through, and that's a key summoner spell again. They still have 3 people on bottom side. You see Leona coming to hover, but Knight just has to stand and watch. Look at all these minions dying to the tower. He's waiting for On to come escort him into safety, but another very smart play here from PSG to cut off more resources from the hands of BLG. So many minions dying.
And Funnel Betty, who has just been such a monumental carry for this PSG roster as well. Like, after he left the LPL and came in towards the PCS, this guy was an absolute beast, and he's only continued to show up for this roster. Now that he's on 2-0, he's going to have this Triforce completed off of the 3 set as well. He's in prime position to play out of his mind to try and carry PSG across the line. Plus, again, you don't have a huge amount of lockup that can really keep him in check. He has the Cleanse for anything that On has, then has the Arcane Shift and a Flash for so much of what BLG are trying to bring to the table.
Exactly. One of the few AD carries that doesn't completely pull out their hair and scream that an Aurora is on the enemy team. It's true. Actually has some options, some playability. Plus, as you can see, PSG obviously targeting Knight over and over. Multiple ganks towards him, catching him in transition, constantly trying to burn the flash, take away resources from that Aurora, make sure it does not become a nightmare for them later on.
But he's the one they're going to have to watch over these next few minutes. Still a while before the next Drake, and we saw grubs exchanged for denying Knight a couple of waves in the bot side, so it's 3 grubs apiece for both these teams, but a TP coming in by PSG. They know Knight has no flash. Wait in the darkness in the tri-bush. Will Knight expect it? Maple here to catch the wave. On and Shun on their way across as well. You can see the ward placed there. JunJia and Woody looking for the invade towards the red buff. They are pushing mid, they are pushing bot. Betty here to join the battle. Maple gets the first move, can look for a flank here with the Fate Seal, dashes forward, unbinds his soul on down to half HP. The Solar Flare goes in with a bullet time, and that's 2 locked up, and Woody's the first to fall. Maple was distracted by Knight. Betty dashing back in between worlds. Knight can look for more. Maple dives in with a Fate Seal, but BLG will happily take the triple for Elk.
And just like that, it crumbles in PSG's fingers. It almost turns to dust. A triple kill for Elk is huge. That almost brings them back to gold parity. Still a lead for PSG, but you have to be so careful when over chasing into the jungle like that, into so much AoE. The idea was there, but the execution was off.
Yeah, going into those tiny corridors is just perfect for the BLG composition, and PSG pay the price. Bin still relatively low, and Azhi snuck in here, but there's so many members of BLG collapsing.
Shun cleared out the ward. See on his way up as well. TP coming in as PSG. Well, they're not going to do anything to help out Azhi here. He's dead. Knight takes it. BLG will get the push in the top side, and that gold is even now.
And that was just good timing from BLG. You could look at the rest of the map, and PSG hadn't set up their waves to really be a threat anywhere. There's still slow push on bot side for Maple, and that wave disintegrated for Betty. So BLG getting time alone with this turret. Maybe in a position to match on towards this top or bot side play, but will still be first tower, I believe, for PSG.
No, I think BLG take it. They have
they
Demolish,
will, yeah.
right? They have 3 people in the Demolish from Bin. They should be able to take this one first. Maple trying to match, as you say, on the bottom side, but BLG with the TP in. Invests a lot to make sure they take the first turret, and it does give them that gold infusion that they were looking for.
Yeah, BLG, you can't make mistakes against them like that very frequently. They immediately take control on the map, offensively up to the top side, steal away the red buff in addition to that top tower, and just chaining the objectives here. This is well ahead of the timer for the Dragon too, so they can even match up for that as well.
You can see the flip on the MasterCard lane economy snapshot when it comes towards the gold, but PSG want to flip this objective as well.
Bin has no teleport, so the fact that Azhi has walked here and BLG see Azhi here, they should know, all right, fine, PSG, you have the numbers. We're just going to keep Bin splitting on bottom side. You can have a Rift Herald, which will at least be a nice takeaway.
Yeah, get more gold back for Bin, who is 24 CS down, as expected, in a ranged into melee matchup in the top lane that was left to its own devices, but he's only about 250 gold out of pocket right now. Woody looking towards top lane, though. Knight does have that between worlds in his flash, probably about 10 seconds away from coming off cooldown. He'll respect it and back away. Because of that, PSG should just be able to secure the tower. Knight might come back, though. Wonder, is he going to step forward? They don't have vision. He's just waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I think he's respecting it. On had reset, Shun had reset, and then actually started to shift kind of over towards mid to cover that mid lane play. So it's a nice read from PSG, and Knight just not wanting to give over that little bit more. We'll just stick in the bush and pick up this wave as it crashes. But look at the quick move. Rift Herald and Toe, they're going to try and crack mid lane for this as PSG.
The Drake up. You can see Azhi's actually crept through the darkness in that bot side jungle to apply a bit of pressure with the flank. He'll catch out Shun, who goes into that decoy. Pops the clone. The Rift Herald did get a charge down. Can't quite take the tower, but it does get mid-prio for PSG. There's a second Drake afoot if they decide that is their priority.
Maple has TP, Knight doesn't, so Maple kind of hiding out, seeing if he can wait until Knight disappears so we can put threat onto the tier 2 while also keeping threat on towards Dragon. PSG playing at the map well right now.
BLG now have a Bloodthirster and a BF sword on Elk. He was so far delayed in this game. Now even Stevens in terms of gold with Betty. And if he is left at the back of a fight with no one threatening him, he is just going to rip you to shreds. You'd like playing Enter the Gungeon, but in League of Legends, just dodging every bullet you can.
Another big pivotal thing to look at in the setup for the next team fight is who will mark this Kennen. Always so big, especially when the Kennen does have flash. The effect of the flank coming in for the big team fight. And BLG have a lot of members that could do it, as Maple's making his escape here. On still chasing them.
Yeah, it really felt like they just wanted the ultimate out of him, right? It means that if you are going to fight around something, it becomes a bit easier. Make him burn that, has to wait for the cooldown, but PSG will use the fact that On is on the top side of the map to start themselves up a dragon.
That's what I was going to say, is what is that something, right, for BLG? Because there's no top tower to really put pressure onto. PSG are still holding on towards mid. They have push on bot, so it kind of was like a Hail Mary, it feels like, nearly for BLG to hope they could cross-map something, but I think you're pretty happy as PSG that you get everything there for just Maple's ult, which is about a third of the way done.
It's always interesting when a game gets to this sort of point, relatively even. 2 Drakes to PSG, a slight gold lead as well. And then you look at the comps, it's like, can't really tell who scales better. It really comes down to execution, right? Like, if Azure gets in without being exhausted, obviously he's going to rip through BLG. If the MF ult gets off and hits 3 people, obviously Elk's going to.
But they're always the most fun, right? Where you just get to see everything thrown in the kitchen sink and see who comes out on top.
And I know, you know, Yone's got the magnifying glass on him for the whole tournament, but I'm truly looking at Betty. And you guys were both, correctly so, giving him so much praise earlier. I really think, you know, he's in a position with Cleanse Flash Ezreal to be able to now. Oh, the ultimate down now for Azhi.
He gets the wave, and because of that, they decide not to dive. Meanwhile, in the top lane, look at the pressure PSG are putting on. TP from Knight away from the wave. PSG should be able to get the tier 2 here, but they might sacrifice their tier 1 in mid for it. Elk opens up on the tower, takes it, and the tier 2 will be exchanged. BLG deciding that they couldn't defend anyway, and so they want to make sure they open up the map.
And it's not a bad idea. You do get 2 towers there for it, so at least it's something. True. But in the grand scheme of things, PSG Talon are still up in towers there, getting more gold. So it's a great spot for them to be in, and a huge amount of that obviously going in towards the hands of Maple. Going to help out with the fact he's nearly 800 gold lead for himself in that mid lane now.
And the towers on Summoner's Rift are not all created equal. The outer ones are only 500 gold for your team. The secondary ones are 800 gold for your team. Plus, there's an added benefit of the secondary ones are more funneled gold because more of it is local. So you get like more concentrated power, and what better place to concentrate that power?
100% true, but I will say if we're going down this Animal Farm route, I feel like the mid lane towers are quite important as well. Now that PSG have managed to get one in response, obviously that's great, but they do open up a lot more avenues to get into the enemy jungle and to actually create these pockets of darkness, pockets of vision that you can play around.
I think you do need a lot of control on the map to try and get value out of that, right? Yep. And obviously BLG are doing a good job of setting that up at the moment, but Azhi still has good push against Bin. He's in a decent spot, and Maple is a massive threat on side lanes against people like Knight. So the windows of opportunity for BLG to really punish this are tough. I think it's more of a case we're going to need to wait and see how this next team fight turns out at Dragon, so then that vision could maybe be established by BLG. Otherwise, PSG just get to continue to play outsides in their favor.
All right, well, that side lane focus tower gold actually completed a stride breaker for Maple.
Okay, you're right. The top lane tier 2 is more equal than the others.
yeah. I mean, the power of concentrating gold in any MOBA, honestly, is just so big. So we'll see what Maple can do with it. Of course, we were talking about the setup too of you know, his interview and possibly even being his kind of last stance here. Would be a banger if they were able to pull off a really big upset.
Yeah, what a last chance it would be. Around since 2013 on Gamina Bears, all the way back in the age of yore, you have to feel, when it comes to modern League of Legends, has been so consistently on top team, so consistently challenging at World Championships. It would be an incredible performance by him if he is able to make it to the quarterfinals, obviously alongside his compatriots on PSG. The game's still relatively even, though. We talk about it with a slight PSG tinted glasses because they are slightly ahead, because they do have this Yone and this Ezreal and so much power in their comp. But PSG can definitely fight back from anywhere. On court, out will burn the flash. Trades it for that Glacial Prison. Solar Flare coming back onto Woody, who has a flash of his own and won't burn it in response.
You're just never going to back away from the moment. But yeah, I think, as you say, the PSG to be able to take down BLG, just the #1 seed, everyone who was expecting to be an absolute beast. But even for Maple as well, like he got replaced by Knight on, replaced Knight on Suning back in the day as well, which was just kind of like a big kind of talking point where people were like, oh, we're getting Maple in. He's been such a stellar mid laner first, but Knight then kind of moving on to bigger and better things on top esports as well. So I think there is definitely a little bit of a friendly rivalry between the two mid laners as well.
Very much agree. For the moment, though, Although it is a slower game, there has been a lot to talk about. We've had a lot of trading across the map. My expectation is things might speed up in the next 20 seconds or so, lads, because there's a Drake on the cards and it would be sole point for PSG if they can find it.
Yeah, and I agree. And on the side of BLG, they were like, all right, we don't want to fight into your 2-item power spike before we get our 2 items. You know, that's not fair. So they want to delay a little bit. They want to wait until they can catch up in inventory here.
One to remember, On did burn his flash towards the top side. Does have the solar flare back in 1 second's time. Now it's up. PSG start the Drake. BLG looking for an avenue to approach. Bin looking to reset and get a TP in. Maple going to that Gromp to stack up his Q3. PSG still fighting over this dragon. TP coming in from Azure as well. He's just finished the Shadow Flame. 2 items on the Kennen. Bin will TP to the control ward down towards the top side of the fight. Jun is in the pit. Azure is behind them. There's a control ward there. Betty putting damage into the on right now. Jun going in with the Cyclone onto the backline. Finds Maple but doesn't find Betty. Azure and PSG will disengage the fight. Jun has to flash the wall, but he's locked up with his fate sealed. Bin now in the pit trying to battle against JunJia and Maple, but BLG are all retreating. Will PSG look for more? Azure has the flash, has the slicing maelstrom, but PSG decide that's enough. We got Soul Point, and now perhaps the Baron as well.
The patience from PSG there was so beautiful. Their setup was way, way better with Azhi teleporting in and coming onto the backside of the deep fight. I mean, he had such an amazing possible flank that they all have to run. They get completely chased off, and BLG just end up separated. PSG, they're on Baron. In the last team fight, they divide and conquer. Can they just get this objective?
Bin uses the Hex there to see the information. Woody diving in, and he stops Elk from putting on the bullet time. The slicing maelstrom on the back line as well. Knight's in the pit, but Maple puts him in the dirt. Bin now going in for a little bit more, but kind of like the counter-strike onto Maple. Another is down. On has fallen. PSG are somehow beating BLG.
They're running circles around them. Divide and conquer again, right over the wall, and Maple comes up huge. They get the Baron, and they get the team fight.
And Bin goes over trying to see if he can get into a position to come into the pit, but it's so well played by Azhi. He never used this Storm in the last fight. He just stood there menacing as this mouse, and then as he comes into this, interrupts Elk. The weirding doesn't do enough. Betty barely survives in the backline as well.
The smallest thing, the Between Worlds wasn't quite far enough away from where Elk was ulting to stop the crashdown hitting him. As soon as Woody hit him with the crashdown, he gets bounced back by that wall. We're talking a matter of like 2 centimeters there.
And Betty evading the Leona ultimate on the edge of the Aurora ultimate, on the edge of the Miss Fortune ultimate. So much for PSG off the back of this, though. Now they can just take over. They're at 3 dragons. They have control of the entire rift right now.
And they got the stun as well onto Elk, who has the flash and will use it to dash away from any follow-up engage. Jun going in with the Cyclone, trying to make a Hurricane rip through PSG. They'll find one already. Jun stunned up. Azure flashing away from the Solar Flare. All the while, Betty and Maple were pushing in the bot side. They take a tier 2. Maple looks for a little bit more. On lands the stun with the Shield of Daybreak. The weirding out from Knight for a little bit of damage as well. True shot barrage between the uprights of On and Knight, but still clips Shun's heals. The Baron remains for the next minute and 20 seconds for PSG, but right now they've called off the push.
And now it's 3 items on towards Betty. He's going to be able to reset and get even more. Look at the goal difference. Powered by AWS at the bottom of your screen. PSG have been playing immaculately in this. And with 2.5 minutes now until this sole potential for PSG Talon, they just push outside. They take this nice and slow. They deny BLG access. And this should be a game win for PSG Talon.
PSG pushed BLG to the edge at MSI. It was the full 5 games there, getting into winning positions in some of the other games as well. And they're not going to let this one go lightly right now. A huge winning position for them. And because they have the Baron buff, it also makes it easier to reset up. Maple, it looks like he's just going to finish off the red buff before he joins the rest of the squad, but still the easy setup with their split.
I also think for a lot of people, this was kind of what they were hoping to see from PSG Talon. When they came into the play-ins, a lot of teams disappointed with their performance, where they didn't look as clean as they possibly could have. But here,
Cyclone again from Jun. True shot barrage coming out from Betty as well. Between worlds, Jun just locked up in it. He'll flash across. On falling low, 200 HP on him now as Betty looks to open up. Fate sealed, the slicing maelstrom coming in too. Jun's down, Bin's down, On's down, and BLG are up. It's only Knight and Elk left alive. alive. Can they defend against PSG? The TP is going to come in from Azure. The bullet time to clear the wave. And that might just be enough. There's another wave on its way. 10 seconds from hitting onto the inhibitor tower. 27 seconds on Shun. Knight starting to back away. One inhibitor seems to be the prize PSG get for winning that fight. Elk and Knight will try and defend at the Nexus Towers, and PSG probably won't push for more. They don't invest the TP from Azure. They will retreat after finding that inhib, and a 7,000 gold lead for the PCS #1 seed.
It is not just PSG pushing BLG. They are dismantling this team. The only good BLG play was actually the mess up of PSG Red Invade. That's the only benefit they actually had in this whole game. PSG have been running it from head to toe. Let's take another look at this. Even with this Sejuani ultimate, not able to find the full chase here, and because On was on the other side, this Ezreal just takes them down. They have no further openings here, no possibility of even escape there on the side of BLG. They're just so far behind now, completely out-itemized. They're the ones that have to pull out the surprise play.
I think a lot of people forget that this was
behind.
Oh, hang on, TP
Behind. Woody's going to be engaged on here, but On is now in the meat grinder. Maple goes in with the face sealed, and Azure is just waiting for his opportunity to open up. Bin's taken one. The slicing Maelstrom will find another, though. Betty being chased out by Shun. He'll flash away. Shun dies to Betty, and Betty survives. Bin diving in onto Maple, who can unbind his soul and then dash back. JunJia trying to keep the dragon aggro for now. Maple put into the dirt by Bin. PSG still have 2 alive. Elk's going to try and keep the dragon aggro, but Betty can do a lot of work from a lot of range right now. Elk has the bullet time coming up in 7 seconds. JunJia trying to heal himself back up in the jungle. Elk there makes it rain. Bin going to try and get for the reset. Elk still full HP. Bullet time, no flash, no... Well, it has the flash, but no cleanse. Bin TP's in. JunJia's looking for it. And Elk finds one. The shutdown, he'll find another great cleanse from Elk. JunJia able to survive, but Bin will take the Drake, the soul, not quite, but PSG.
Bin wins those! Oh my goodness, he wins the 1v1 with Maple on Yone up on the top side of the map. He teleports back. He's actually able to finish it off and deny the Dragon Soul. BLG will not go out without a fight.
This was such a close fight, though. Maple ends up getting on towards 2 here, but they not able to catch Elk out with that initial ult from Maple. Azhi, this ultimate doesn't connect onto many people either. It's a little bit too early, and then Elk is in a position where he's able to continuously kite away from the crucial members of PSG. Bin finishes off Maple, and Elk is just chasing out PSG from this pit. It's a couple of just barely missed ultimates onto the key members of BLG that put PSG back in their place.
What a tense one here with JunJia and Betty lying in wait over the top of this wall, trying to get the burst damage. But not only is it a deny of the Dragon Soul, there's 1,000 gold shutdown into the pockets of Elk in the attempt to acquire that soul for themselves.
On a knife edge is putting it lightly here. Still a 5,000 gold lead for PSG, but 4 minutes on the clock for BLG to recuperate, to wait out. They can continue to delay the game. PSG trying to gain control of this top side. Baron, their call. Azure, no TP, is now resetting after pushing out bot.
Back to my early point on the comps as far as Betty's position in the overall game too. I still have a lot of faith in PSG, even with this slight speed bump that they have run into. As soon as he gets his summoner spells back, it is just so hard for this BLG setup to actually put the necessary pressure on the Ezreal. And up until that point, he had been deathless. He had basically been the king of the map. That 1,000 gold, though, we'll see if that actually ends up paying off there for BLG.
I mean, it's 4 items on Elk now. Hasn't gone for the upgraded boots. Don't really need them on MF because you have that strut on. That solar flare was a mile wide. On, gets caught with the Glacial Prison, has no flash, has the exhaust, will get away for now. The world's between as Woody trying to escape, but he's just burst out by Elk. Those 4 items coming to the fore for BLG. A Cyclone onto JunJia, who has the flash as well. The bullet time comes out, the slicing Maelstrom, as Bin is trying to dive across them. Betty and Maple, the only 2 left alive for PSG. Maple will flash, but the bullet still finds his back. BLG win the fight.
PSG were so close, but these last few fights, BLG have been able to outmatch them in the team fights, and now it's Baron for the LPL first seed.
Huge pick right there. Maybe it was a caster curse. BLG looking like they are on the warpath. Another objective bounty on top of it. lot of bounty gold, both objective and champion, going the way of BLG. Huge comeback swing available in the last couple of plays.
And a bunch of tier 2s still for them to take. You can see the goal basically even, about 800 between the two now. After On missed this, I thought PSG had a way into the fight. They catch out On, but he's able to escape. They don't really have the CC follow-up, and then this between worlds is just so devastating for PSG.
Yeah, especially since it denies Maple access to the fight. He went with the soul back towards the original starting point, which meant he couldn't get involved. The ult here as well, just barely denying Azhi access to Elk once again, means he gets the full unleash of the bullet time and is able to rip through them. And you can see there for BLG, Lumao laughing a little bit. He knows he's getting away with this one.
Oof, yeah, BLG fighting their way out of a very tough spot in this game. Now they're the ones with the push available, though. You mentioned all the towers and the standing gold here available on the map. Let's see if they can close in and get it, because Azhi's trying to find a way for a flank. You know, this Kennen constantly looking for the devastating flank, but On has his exhaust ready. So goal number 1 for BLG, On mark the Kennen, always be on the same side as the Kennen. You can keep him out. There's no flash on the Kennen, so it honestly should be pretty easy for BLG to avoid that devastating flank.
And I think if you're PSG, you just sack a couple of towers, you try and put up a little bit of a front, but it's more of a game face than anything else, right? Especially with the waves crashing at the same time. Kennen in the bot lane still harassing that tower down. Mid lane turret is taken by BLG. The gold swings in their favor for the first time in a long time in this game.
I think there is an angle for PSG, though, to create pressure on this top side. You already look at where Maple is. 30 seconds until Dragon. BLG have to respond to this because it's an open inhibitor. So you can see BLG aren't going to be able to use this Baron buff to crack the turret with a minute left on it. You have to get Dragon, you have to clear a top wave. So PSG, they forgo the outer turrets, but they hold on to what are the important ones in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, BLG setting up something here. JunJia able to dodge away from On, puts the Glacial Prism back in him. Down to half HP, the Mystic shots from Betty, and On is off! Betty now locked in the pit with Knight, but do you really want to be locked in there with him? The TP in from Azure as well, looking for that slicing mushroom. Remember, there's no exhaust as well, because On is down, no flash for Azure, but the Drake up, and Soul on the cards for PSG if they can find it. TP behind by Bin, as they're looking for the pincer movement. PSG trying to get the push through mid, through Maple. Bin still looking for that flank. Woody's going to try and mark him. They see him, the counter-strike goes in, the bullet time as well. Azure's ripped to pieces. Fate sealed from Maple isn't enough. Bin diving onto Woody, and that's 2. Betty forced away, has to dash away from Jun, and Bin is just doing so much work on the back line. It's a double for Elk. The flank sublime from BLG.
At the end of the day, it's Bin Jax in back-to-back Dragon fights. He gets the job done, and with the Baron buff, BLG are inside the base.
And it just helps out Elk so much. The bullet time is perfect. The flash away from the Yone ult as well. Elk needed to be that follow-up and damage, and he's putting PSG down.
It's Betty's time to shine. He opens up on Elk, who tanks the tower. Bin going in with a counter-strike as well. They'll just take one Nexus tower for now, but Betty gets the slow. Knight goes in, and Betty dashes away. He can't survive the weirding. Puts him 6 feet under, and now BLG will open up on the second Nexus tower. Woody going back in, looking for Bin again, but Bin somehow still survives. PSG wiped away under their Nexus towers. Azure spawns just in time to watch the Nexus fall.
What a comeback for BLG. They woke up just in time, fellas.
Barely.
I think if they had given one more play over to PSG, that would be a very different story.
Taking the Dreams apart a little bit too seriously about looking at this one, because that was a roughie. But Riot Games is celebrating all of you and the ways you have made League of Legends so much more than an esport during October's Player Days. Level up your fan signs for your favorite team with a free kit available for download on leagueoflegends.com.
Red Bull gives you wings.
在抵达那一刻之前，
你能做的只有等待。
如果故事再重来一次，我想这批烂物还会做出相同的选择。
等待比分失衡，企图从中看清胜负的端倪。
等待一切安静，好听清自己脑海里的声音，直到抓住那一刻。
他们可能会因为激进而失误，但是不会因为胆怯而畏惧。